Today we are going to study the industrial pollution and industrial pollutant with reference to environmental chemistry. Before going into the details of industrial pollution, how industry creates pollution and what are the pollutants from the industry, it is important to know about the pollution. Pollution is the introduction of contaminants into the natural environment that cause adverse change. Pollution can take in the form of chemical substances or energy such as noise, heat, or light. Pollutant, the component of the pollution, can be either foreign substances or energies or naturally occurring contaminants. Pollution is often classified as point source pollution or non-point source pollution. Now let's define a point source pollution. A point source pollution is a single identifiable source of air, water, thermal, noise, or light pollution. A point source has negligible extent, distinguishing it from other pollution source geometries such as non-point source or area source. These sources are called point sources because in mathematical modeling they can be approximated as a mathematical point to simplify analysis. Pollution point sources are identical to other physics, engineering, optics, and chemistry point sources. Now, here is non-point source pollution. Non-point source pollution or NPS is pollution resulting from many diffuse sources. Non-point source pollution generally results from land runoff, precipitation, atmospheric deposition, drainage, seepage, or hydrological modification. Non-point source pollution may derive from many different sources with no specific solution, may change to rectify the problem, making it difficult to regulate. Non-point source water pollution is difficult to control because it comes from the everyday activities of many different people such as lawn fertilization, applying pesticides, road construction, and building construction. Now let's see different types of industrial pollution. Industrial pollution majorly contributed to other forms of pollution. Number 1, air pollution. Number 2, noise pollution. Number 3, plastic pollution. Number 4, soil contamination. Number 5, radioactive contamination. Number 6, thermal pollution. Number 7, visual pollution. Number 8, water pollution. Now let's have a furtive glance at different types of industrial pollution. The first is air pollution. Air pollution means the release of chemicals and particulate matter into the atmosphere. Noise pollution, which encompasses roadway noise, aircraft noise, industrial noise, as well as high intensity sonar. In case of noise pollution, the dominant source class is the motor vehicles, producing about 90% of all unwanted noise worldwide. Noise pollution induces hair loss, high blood pressure, stress, and sleep disturbance. Next is plastic pollution. Plastic pollution involves the accumulation of plastic products and microplastics in the environment that adversely affect wildlife habitat, or humans. Here is soil contamination, which occurs when chemicals are released by spill or underground leakage. Among the most significant soil contaminants are hydrocarbons, heavy metals, MTBE, herbicides, pesticides, and chlorinated hydrocarbons. Now, the next is radioactive contamination. Radioactive contamination resulting from 20th century activities in atomic physics, such as nuclear power generation and nuclear weapon research, manufacture, and deployment. Now, the next is thermal pollution. Thermal pollution is a temperature change in natural water bodies caused by human influence, such as use of water as coolant in a power plant. Here is visual pollution, which can refer to the presence of overhead power lines, motorway billboards, sacred landforms as from strip mining, open storage of trash, municipal solid waste, or space debris. Now the next is water pollution. We have already discussed water pollution in detail in a separate lecture. Here we will only see water pollution with reference to industrial pollution. So, water pollution by the discharge of wastewater from commercial or industrial waste, intentionally or through spills into the surface waters, discharge of untreated domestic sewage, and chemical contaminants such as chlorine. Now let's see the environmental impact of industrial waste. Number one is the causing air pollution. Another obvious effect of industrial waste is air pollution resulting from fossil fuel burning. This affects the life of many people because they spread illness. Over time, this issue that has been widespread, several environmental issues have a devastating effect on third world countries because they do not have sufficient resources to solve this particular issue. This also affects the quality of a soil because farmers have to try and deal with this massive issue. In addition, nitrogen dioxide is a common air pollutant found in the air. Air pollutants have a devastating effect on human population because it causes sicknesses. Ammonia also causes a lot of respiratory problems that can be contracted from the air. Illness that can occur from air pollution range from irritation to eyes, skin, nose, and throat. There is also a chance to get pneumonia or bronchitis through being very dangerous. Commonly, people have reported to have gotten headaches, nausea, and dizziness from air pollution. The World Health Organization has stated that air pollution is the worst risk in terms of human health. Air pollution has been around for a long time. Indoor air pollution is also a risk for humans. This type of air pollution is caused of the burning of solid fuel, mostly from cooking or heat. Now here is industrial pollution causing water pollution. One of the most devastating effects of industrial waste is water pollution. For most industrial processes, heavy amount of water is used which comes in contact with harmful chemicals. These chemicals are usually metals or radioactive material. This heavily affects the environment because most of the waste ends up in ocean, lakes or river. As a result, water becomes polluted, posing as health hazard to everyone. Farmers rely on this water because if the water is polluted, then crops that are produced can become polluted. This affects the health of society because if industrial companies cannot clean up their waste, this begins to affect the life of humans as well as animals. Sea creatures' health are affected because their lives become endangered by this polluted water. Water pollution can have devastating effect on the human body, with the main ones being infections from bacteria, parasites and chemicals. Diseases that human can be exposed from drinking water range from cholera, typhoid or gradia. Now let's see the history of industrial pollution. Industrial pollution has always accompanied civilization. Pollution started from prehistoric times when man created the first fires. According to the 1983 article in the journal Science, soot found on the ceiling of prehistoric caves provides ample evidence of the high levels of pollution that was associated with inadequate ventilation of open fires. Metal frogging appears to be a key turning point in the creation of significant air pollution levels outside the home. Core samples of glaciers in Greenland indicate increases in pollution associated with Greek, Roman and Chinese metal production. Air pollution due to industrial pollution occurs when harmful or excessive quantities of substances are introduced into the Earth's atmosphere. Sources of air pollution include gases such as ammonia, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, and chlorofluorocarbons, particulate matter, both organic and inorganic, and biological molecules. It may cause diseases, allergies, and even death to humans. It may also cause harm to other living organisms such as animal and food crops and may damage the natural environment. Both human activity and natural processes can generate air pollution. Coal was the predominant source of fuel. Its potential to pollute arises from its sulfur content, which can be as high as 10%. Coal also contains significant amounts of toxic heavy metals, including lead, cadmium, and mercury, which remain in the ash when it is burned. Oil began to grow in importance as a fuel in the early part of the 20th century. By the year 1940, a massive petrochemical industry had grown up using petroleum as a raw material for the synthesis of a wide range of new organic compounds, including plastic, pesticides, and pharmaceuticals. Industrial pollutants are a significant risk factor for a number of pollution related diseases, including respiratory infection, heart diseases, COPD, stroke, and lung cancer. The human health effects of poor air quality are far-reaching, but principally affects the body's respiratory system and the cardiovascular system. Individual reactions to air pollutants depend on the type of the pollutant a person is exposed to, the degree of the exposure, and the individual health status and genetics. Industrial pollution related to air pollution is a big disaster. Outdoor air pollution alone causes 2.1 to 4.21 million deaths annually. Overall air pollution causes the deaths of around 7 million people worldwide each year. And it is the world's largest single environmental health risk. Productivity losses and degraded quality of life caused by air pollution are estimated to the cost of world economy almost $5 trillion per year. There is need to mention the sources and causes for industrial pollution. Pollution comes from both natural and man-made sources. However, globally man-made pollutants from combustion, construction, mining, agricultural, and warfare are increasingly significant in the population equation. Motor vehicle emissions are one of the leading causes of air pollution. China, United States, Russia, India, Mexico, and Japan are the world leader in air pollution emission. Principal stationary pollution sources include chemical plants, coal-fired power plants, oil refineries, petrochemical plants, nuclear waste disposal activity, incinerator, large livestock farms, PVC factories, metal production factories, plastic factories, and other heavy industry. Agriculture air pollution comes from the contemporary practices which include clear filling and burning of natural vegetation as well as spraying of pesticides and herbicides. About 400 million metric tons of hazardous waste are generated each year. The United States alone produces about 250 million metric tons. Americans constitute less than 5% of the world's population, but produce roughly 25% of the world's carbon dioxide and generate approximately 30% of the world waste. In 2007, China overtook the United States as the world's biggest producer of carbon dioxide while still far behind based on per capita population. Number 1. Lack of policies to control pollution. Here is lack of effective policies and poor enforcement drive allowed many industries to bypass laws made by the Pollution Control Board, which resulted in mass-scale pollution that affected the lives of many people. Number 2. Unplanned industrial growth. In most industrial townships, unplanned growth took place wherein those companies floated rules and norms and polluted the environment with both air and water pollution. One of the most important causes of industrial pollution is the use of outdated technologies. Most industries still rely on old technologies to produce products that generate a large amount of waste. To avoid high cost and expenditure, many companies still make use of traditional technologies to produce high-end products. Another cause of industrial pollution is the presence of large number of small-scale industries. Many small-scale industries and factories that do not have enough capital and rely on government grants to run their day-to-day business often escape environment regulations and release a large amount of toxic gases in the atmosphere, which needs to be monitored. A very pathetic cause of the industrial pollution is the inefficient waste disposal. Water pollution and soil pollution are often caused directly due to inefficiency in the disposal of waste. Long-term exposure to polluted air and water causes chronic health problems, making the issue of industrial pollution into a severe one. It also lowers the quality of air in the surrounding areas, which causes many respiratory disorders or diseases. Leaching of resources from our natural world. Industries do require a large number of raw materials to make them into finished products. This requires the extraction of minerals from beneath the earth. The extracted minerals can cause soil pollution when spilled on the earth. Leaks from the vessels can cause oil spills that may prove harmful for marine life. Now let's see the effects of industrial pollution. Number 1 is the effect on human community. Beyond safety level, pollution can cause respiratory disease, cardiovascular disease, throat inflammation, chest pain, and congestion. Water pollution causes approximately 14,000 deaths per day, mostly due to the contamination of drinking water by untreated sewage in developing countries. Nearly 500 million Chinese lack access to safe drinking water. For the year 2010, analysis estimated that 1.2 million people died prematurely each year in China because of industrial pollution related to air pollution. The World Health Organization estimated in 2007 that industrial pollution causes 500,000 deaths per year in India. Studies have estimated that the number of people killed annually in the United States could be over 50,000. On October 2017, a study by the Lancet Commission on Pollution and Health found that global pollution, specifically toxic air, water, soil, and workplaces, kills 9 million people annually, which is the triplet the number of deaths caused by AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria combined, and 15 times higher than deaths caused by war and other forms of human violence. Industrial pollution has adverse effect on our environment, and it has been found to be present widely in the environment. There are a number of effects of industrial pollution. Number one, biomagnification describes situation where toxins such as heavy metal may pass through the trophic levels, becoming exponentially more concentrated in the process. Number two, carbon dioxide emission cause ocean acidification, the ongoing decrease in the pH of the Earth's ocean as carbon dioxide becomes dissolved. Now let's see how we can control industrial pollution or pollution. Pollution control is a term used in the environmental management. It means the control of emission and effluents into air, water, or soil. Without pollution control, the waste products from overconsumption, heating, agriculture, mining, manufacturing, transportation, and other human activities, whether they accumulate or disperse, will degrade the environment. Pollution prevention and waste minimizations are more desirable than pollution control. Reducing pollution. There are two approaches through which pollution can be reduced. Number one, reducing consumption or usage of polluting products. Number two, treatment of waste, discharge, and disposal of a pollutant. Many countries, including the EU, Switzerland, Canada, and the United States, have effectively implemented systems that treat water waste for most chemicals. But yet, significant improvement in methods are possible. In such improvements, priority should be given to considering the use of microbes or fungi for clean up of heavy metals and organic compounds that are hard to degrade because of their high efficiency related to chemical or physical methods. Most developing and third-world countries lack treatment facilities, meaning wastewater in these countries are significantly more toxic per unit mass than wastewater in developed countries, which is also a result of companies shifting pollution-intensive production to countries with fewer environmental restrictions. This is especially observed in the mining industry, where treatment of waste is often very expensive and pollutants are very toxic. Degrading toxicants. In case of pollution leading to buildup of toxic material, reduction of availability to the environment must be ensured to rebuild ecosystem services in a polluted area. Although physical or chemical methods such as change in acidity or absorption into the soil can help decrease the availability of chemicals, additional monitoring and securing is necessary to make sure that the pollutant is not brought back into the environment. Ideally, this system should be able to degrade the pollutant by microbes or fungi, as this will irreversibly destroy the toxicant. Many inorganic materials take a long time to biodegrade, which means that their build-up rate of almost proportional to the total rate of the pollution at any given time. These are also often some of the most potent and generally poisonous material, and thus strongly toxic even in low concentration. Influential inorganic pollutants include non-metals like ammonia and cyanide, and heavy metals such as copper, mercury, cadmium, among others, which are all toxic in various degrees. Many inorganic discharges are point source, so proper treatment of material is generally possible through biological degradation with microbes and fungi or electrokinetic treatment. Mostly heavy metals are much less toxic in alkaline environment, a fact that can be used in the treatment plants. Some combination of these three techniques should be established at lower emission for point source metal pollution. Now here is plan of action, which is very important. A slightly generalized plan based on the different kinds of solutions available can be proposed for the different pollutants. Toxic metals should have a restriction on maximum environmental release based on relative toxicity levels and accumulation rates in ecosystem. If it is inevitable that heavy metals will be released in waste, treatment is necessary before the waste is to be released into the environment. In a series of steps, electrolysis should be used to reduce precious metals, for example, copper and silver, which can then be refined and sold. Thus, biological processing with the appropriate microbe should be used to reduce toxicity of very sensitive ions, for example, mercury, cadmium and manganese. Last, the waste solution should be made slightly alkaline to precipitate as much metal oxides and are possible before release into the environment. Toxic organic compounds emissions that are not pesticides application should be reduced by setting a fixed standard of emission and ecotoxicity in a cap and trade system, which can gradually be lowered. Ideally, this would eventually lead to zero emission, as most organic compounds can be degraded by microbes and thus treated effectively. If compounds are found to be excessively toxic, a blanket ban should be introduced. Agrochemicals should be subject to a taxation system in which the ecotoxicity of the compound determines the levy. However, some dangerous pesticides such as atrazine should be incorporated in a cap and trade system of dangerous agrochemicals that would gradually be lowered to allow time for transition to less dangerous chemicals. Again, excessively toxic compounds will need to be removed from the market by a blanket ban. Detoxification and recolonization. Strongly polluted sites should be cleaned up through programs such as the United States Superfund, through bioremediation, and in site cleanup should be the preferential treatment option. Physical and chemical reduction to bioavailability will need to be secured additionally, preferably by an irreversible degradation so that pollutants cannot be released again. Once a site has been detoxified, appropriate measures should be taken to ensure that all important positions of the biome can be fulfilled. Here are some polluting industries of the world. The Pure Earth, an international non-for-profit organization dedicated to eliminating life-threatening pollution in the developing world, issues an annual list of some of the world's most polluting industries. Number one is the lead acid battery recycling industry, industrial mining and ore processing, lead smelting, tannery operation industry, small scale gold mining, industrial and municipal dump sites, industrial states, chemical manufacturing industry, product manufacturing industry, and dye industry. These are the most polluting industries of the world. Now let's see the current status of Pakistan with reference to industrial pollution. Pakistan is among 12 Asian countries out of a total of 15 where industrial pollution is recorded at severe and unacceptable level. More than 6.5 million people are hospitalized annually due to industrial pollution related illness. As per Pakistan Council of Research in Water Resources, drinking water in 17 major cities is not suitable for human consumption, and in Lahore alone 70% of city water is contaminated. Net forest coverage in Pakistan has reduced by 5% in recent times. Here is the most interesting factor, that is the levels of ambient particulate, that is smoke particles and dust are generally twice the world average and more than 5 times as high as in the industrialized countries. There are over 6 million vehicles on the road in the country. According to an ADB report, carbon dioxide emission in 1995 amounted to 85.4 million tons. Vehicles operating in Karachi add 275,000 tons of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide emission in a year. Industrial pollution introduces chemicals, particulates, or biological materials which cause discomfort, disease, or death to humans and damage to both the living organisms and build the environment. According to the World Health Organization, asbestosis, skin cancer, and peritoneal mesothelioma are sicknesses associated with exposure. The organization also states that 2.4 million people die each year from causes directly attributed to industrial pollution. From the entire discussion about industrial pollution, we have concluded that pollution is one of the great existential challenges of the Anthropogenic era. Pollution endangers the stability of the Earth's support system and threatens the continuing survival of human society. So, thank you so much for participating and listening the whole discussion. Thank you so much.